Hello, my name is Turetsky and I'm the Managing Director of Grant Solutions. Today I'll be talking to you about the Tourism Industry Regional Development Fund, or TIRF for short. Is the TIRF grant for you? Well, the question is, do you have a quality tourism project? Because if yes, then please pay close attention, because in the next 25 minutes you'll discover why most tourism providers get overwhelmed and ultimately fail to get their project funded. You'll also learn a simple strategy used by successful applicants, giving them an almost unfair advantage and a shortcut to getting the money. Now, before we begin, there is a disclaimer. We're not endorsed or affiliated with any government organization. As such, the information presented here should be treated as our opinions only. Please do your research prior to taking further action. Having said that, clients pay us a lot of money for our opinions, so I suggest you keep an open mind and find ways to benefit from the content you're about to hear. Items I'll be covering today. Number 1 is an overview of the TIRF grant. Number 2 are the 5 issues that applicants face. Number 3 is the difference between meeting eligibility and addressing the merit criteria. Number 4 is how Grant Solutions may be able to assist you with your project. So who are we and why should you pay attention? Grant Solutions is a private company specializing in assisting business owners applying for competitive government grants, including tourism grants such as TIRF and TIQUIL. The company was founded in April 2007, so this will be our 7th year in business. We've been published in the business media, including The Age, Sydney Morning Herald, Public Accountant, and a lot of other publications. We're headquartered in Melbourne, but we do service clients across all of Australia, with most of our clients being from outside of Victoria. So if you're in a remote area, we can still assist you. Now, some information about the TIRF grant. There are 48.5 million funding available over 4 years, and 13 million have already been distributed. The grants are up to $250,000 and offered on a matched dollar-for-dollar spending basis. And it's there to promote tourism in regional areas, and their definition is outside Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And the aim of the program is to encourage interstate and international visitors to stay longer and spend more money. There's a big focus on quality, so your project should ideally have TIQUIL accreditation, as it's the preferred way to demonstrate quality. Now, round 1 closed in December 2012. Round 2 is expected to open shortly, which is why we're having this presentation. And round 2, it's been confirmed in May 14th budget. The funding has been allocated in the forward estimates. The program is very competitive. Last year, around 700 applied and only 65 applicants were successful. Now, these are the types of project the government is likely to fund. There'll need to be alignment with regional and state tourism objectives, and the project would be TIQUIL accredited. There is demonstrated capacity to undertake the project, so you have the skills, experience, and resources needed. And the project will be self-sustaining and continue to exist after the funding is finished. You also need to show that there is a need for funding. In other words, there will be additional benefits will be achieved because of the grant. Now, the assessment process follows the following 3 stages. These are typically the 3 stages. Stage 1 is eligibility. That's when it's determined if you have provided all the necessary attachments. Stage 2 is when they check that you've completed all the relevant parts of the application. Now, if you fail in stage 1, in the previous 2 bullet points, then your application will be deemed ineligible and you'll be taken out of the assessment process. Stage 2 is the actual assessment of the merit criteria. That's when the merit criteria are reviewed by and scored by 2 assessors. Applications are then ranked from the highest score to the lowest. Highest scoring projects are then selected to be shortlisted. So stage 3 is the best stage to be in, and that's shortlisting, negotiations, and signing of agreement. That's when the minister is given a list of selected projects, shortlisted project. They then approve them and make a public announcement. The shortlisted applicants then need to provide additional information and sign a funding agreement. Once the agreement is signed, applicants can then start and only then start the project while providing regular updates. So these below are the steps that applicants are suggested to take as part of the process. So number one is read all of the information available, so application, fact sheet, guidelines, FAQ, sample funding agreement. Step two is watch all the government provided videos and attend an online webinar. Step three is review previously funded project to get ideas as to what was funded last time. Number four is become familiar with tourism objectives of regional, state, and national bodies. Number five is develop a long-term vision for your project which fits into your current business plan. Number six is to contact regional and state organizations to discuss project and obtain letters of support because you want them to support your project. Number seven is to contact your accountant, lawyer, financial advisor for the required attachments, and there's quite a lot of attachments which I'll go into a little bit later. Number eight, you'll need to speak with your counsel regarding any necessary approvals required for you to go ahead. Number nine is you need to plan the cost of your project by obtaining quotes and milestones, perhaps from a project manager or a vendor. Number 10 is conduct research and obtain credible references for applications so you can back it up. Number 11 is address the 4 selection criteria. Each one is up to 1,000 words each. Here, insert references, and then also complete a summary, which is also 1,000 words. Number 12 is to complete the project budget and milestones. So these are 2 different sections. Number 3 is to review and proofread your application, and number 4 is to submit your application on or before the deadline. Very important. Now, what I want to do is talk about the difference between eligibility and the assessment criteria because they are fundamentally different. Eligibility is administrative in nature. Essentially, you're ticking boxes and the information is either provided or not provided. And that's when you spend a lot of time running around to obtain the required attachments and to tick the boxes. The skills required to do this are quite basic, so basic skills are required, and it could be easily delegated to junior staff who will be happy to do it for you. Now, the assessment criteria is a totally different beast altogether. It's very strategic in nature, and that's where you're clearly articulating the value of your project. You need to understand the current needs of your project, and you need to understand the current needs and how your project will address them. Very complex skills are required, and it's very difficult to delegate internally, as most small businesses certainly wouldn't have this expertise in-house. Yet, this expertise is crucial as only the highest scoring applicants are funded. So previously including attachments as part of the eligibility, they're usually not considered as part of the assessment criteria unless you specifically mention them in the criteria itself. So to succeed, you need to be both eligible and competitive. Okay? Eligibility gets you in the game, while the assessment criteria wins you the game by making your application competitive. So what happens is most applicants focus on meeting the eligibility and rush doing the selection criteria. There's not enough time, so they just rush it. Yet addressing the selection criteria is challenging and requires significant research and insight. It is also the main factor that determines who will get funded. It shouldn't be rushed, but often it is. The outcome of this is a non-competitive application. In other words, you just get a rejection letter. Just remember and never forget that it doesn't matter how good or worthwhile your project is, because what matters is what's on the actual page. That's the only thing that's being assessed, the application and how your project is described in that application. During the whole process, applicants experience 5 challenges, and these are here. Number 1 is they're already busy with their existing businesses. Number 2, they don't care about bureaucratic priorities from Canberra. Number 3, there's just too much information to absorb and to provide on submission. Number 4 is they don't understand the government process and feel uncomfortable. Number 5 is they feel lost as they're nowhere to turn to for assistance and advice. Now what I'll do is I'll go into detail into each one of those challenges. So number 1 is they're already busy with an existing business. That's because they're working 8 to 12-hour days, including weekends. They don't have internal departments that they can delegate work to. They don't have a legal department. They don't have an accounting department. It's pretty much themselves and a couple of maybe their wife or a couple of employees. They're already feeling guilty about not spending enough time with their family because they're working 8 to 12-hour days, and they also feel that they're jumping through hoops and wasting scarce resources on this application, which will statistically fail anyway because only a small number of them gets funded. Number 2, the second challenge is they don't know and they don't care about the bureaucratic priorities from Canberra. Now, Tourism 220 sounds very far away, and it sounds like government mumbo jumbo speak. This year it's 2013, so that's 7 years away. That's a very long time. Now, there's a lot of documents to digest, and most of these documents are aimed at internal government departments as opposed to a small business owner. A lot of owners, they don't know what the national priorities are, and they just run around and do their business. That's what they do. In best case scenario, they're focusing on meeting payroll, covering overhead, and making a profit in 2013. And if they're struggling, they're trying to stay alive in spite of the rising costs and the high Australian dollar. So essentially, they just want to get the grant money to fund the project, period. On top of that, they may be suspicious of government, that the government will shortchange them, and something will go wrong due to previous experience with bureaucracy. Perhaps they had some issues with BAS, GST, payroll tax, etc. Number 3 is there's just too much information to read and to provide for the application. Okay. Now let's look. There is the guidelines, FAQ, application form, fact sheet, funding agreement. All of these are written in a language that most tourist operators are not familiar with. And there's also a lot of attachments that need to be provided. So ASIC registration, ABN registration, 2 years of financial statements, matching funding proof, letter of commitment, photos, graphs, experts for plans. So this is all the stuff that you need to provide. And now many businesses are unorganized, so this is a huge task for them to gather all these documents. Number 4 is they don't understand the process. Grants, once again, are written from the government's point of view. They're not written from the applicant's point of view. So the terminology used, milestone, external audits, are all concepts businesses are unfamiliar with. And in almost every single example that we've seen, including large companies, it's done wrong. It's not done correctly, it's just done wrong. We look at it, it's done very poorly. If the government provide any examples, or if we provide examples, they're just copied and without any or many changes, and that's because they're not sure. Now look, in government's defense, due process is required to ensure accountability and minimize the risk of fraud. So a lot of these steps are necessary, but nevertheless, it's still a huge burden to small business. So number 5 is no access to expert advice and quality support when required. Basically, the government is unable to provide specific advice regarding your project. The hotline, if you want to call the hotline, is staffed by less experienced frontline employees with limited authority. Okay, they're essentially designed to handle a high number of basic phone calls, such as dealing with basic eligibility. They can pretty much only read from the guidelines or direct you to read the guidelines, which is particularly not very useful if you've already read the guideline yourself. So you read the guidelines, you have a question, it's going to be very difficult for you to get any useful help there. Alternatively, you'll be advised to send an email with your question. That email will take a few days to be answered, often up to 5 business days, so a whole week. And the answer is likely to be a copy and paste from the guidelines, so not much help there. So if you have a follow-up question, it will need to follow the same process, so 5 more business days. And the whole experience can be quite frustrating if you need to speak with an expert quite quickly and you need some expert advice. So basically, this is what happens. An applicant wants to get a grant, but they experience many challenges when applying. The common outcome of this is frustration, wasted resources, ultimately rejection. So can a grant consultant help? Can they help you? Well, yes, because they understand what the government is trying to achieve. They've read the objectives, they've done additional research. Number 2 is they understand how the process works. because all federal grants need to be aligned with the Commonwealth grant guidelines, so the process is quite similar across all grants. Number 3, they actually do the research and the criteria writing for you, and that's a lot of work. If you think about it, essentially they're doing the grunt work and expressing your own ideas in a way that the government feels comfortable with, in a professional way. Number 4, they will offer expert advice and answer questions regarding your project in real time. So if you have specific questions, you get specific answers, and this advice is backed up by sound explanations and experience. Number 5, they'll focus on your application being successful rather than simply applying. The government focuses on, they don't care who is successful. There's 700 people applying. Someone's going to be successful there. Their aim is to facilitate the process, whereas a grant consultant, they have a vested interest in your application being successful. And number 6, a grant consultant will provide ongoing updates and guidance after your application is successful, such as not to start the project until you sign the funding agreement, which is an issue for some projects. If you think about it, what a grant consultant allows you to do is to be a general with a high-level view of the process, as opposed to a foot soldier who's in the trenches. And that's because a grant consultant is actually able to do a lot of the grunt work for you. So why is Grant Solutions uniquely placed to help you with your project? Now, we've been in the grant business for over 6 years. We also understand both government process and the tourism industry because we've successfully applied for TIRF and TQL grants. We also have a talented and highly experienced team who I hand-selected and personally trained. So you're dealing with a team. We can delegate different tasks and you can get the expertise from each individual. We have also 15 scanned pages of testimonials with full contact details provided, so you can read what our previous clients have thought of our service in great detail. Each one is about a page long. We also have a mobile workforce capable of doing projects anywhere in Australia, including in remote areas. So it doesn't matter where we are, we'll be able to where you are in Australia, we'll be able to assist you. Our fees are tied to results rather than effort, and that's to align our interests so we perform. At the end of the day, you're interested in getting a result, and that's how the company is incentivized. It's all about results. You get results, and then we get results as well. Remarkable results we have achieved. Basically, we're the only company in Australia that has ever submitted over 10 plus successful applications, each one being between $300,000 and $500,000 in a single round. So over 10 were successful, and the clients were very happy with us. So what specifically will Grant Solutions provide? Number 1, a diagnostic consultation to fully understand your project. Number 2, an 11-page proprietary pre-application guide which outlines the strategy. So we have our own strategy, and that's when we'll share it with you. Number 3, a project strategy development meeting to maximize your chances of success. See, it's all about the strategy. Number 4, writing and completing the application for you. So that's answering all the criteria and the summary. So that's a lot of work. If you think about it, it's at least 5,000 words that we'll be writing for you, at least that, plus a lot of research. Number 5, there will be inclusion of over 10 relevant references, statistics to support and strengthen your argument. Number 6 is there will be a comprehensive over 10 page demography analysis identifying the local needs, because it's all about identifying what the needs are and then meeting those needs. And number 7, actuarial analysis and mathematical calculations to justify the benefits of your project, because it's all about getting quantitative benefits and articulating that to the government. Number 8, we'll review your application twice, and we'll particularly look at your budget and milestones, because these are the sections that people often get wrong. Number 9, you'll be offered coaching and mentoring throughout the process at no additional charge, and questions will be answered generally within hours. Number 10, we'll provide letters of support template with around 10 sources that you can approach. So you don't have to come up with the letter of support template from scratch. We have one for you. And number 11, there will be a comprehensive checklist prior to the application submission, so you know exactly what to do and feel comfortable about the process. So what's the simple strategy used by successful applicants? Well, they've just hired Grant Solutions and we did the heavy lifting for them. Look, the truth is, and this is the truth, is that creating a winning grant application requires a lot of work. It's hard, it takes a long time. That's the truth. So someone has to, if it has to be done, and if you want your application to be successful, then someone has to do it. Someone has to do a lot of work. Now the question is, do you have the time and the expertise? We certainly do, and we have a long history of documented successes. So ask yourself, do you want to be a foot soldier when we can make you a general? Do you want to have a high overview, or do you want to be in the trenches doing the grunt work? So there is, however, a catch. We can only, and that catch is we can only accept a small number of clients for a premium done for you service. So that's when we'll do all the writing for you. And that's because my team is small, and that's to protect our unique intellectual property and also methodology. On top of that, as I pointed out in the previous slide, there's a lot of work that needs to be done per each application. So we're talking about specific research, financial calculation, and quality assurance. So it takes a very long time. Now, because there's a lot of work involved and we have a small team, what usually happens is we get flooded and we close the doors about 3 to 4 weeks prior to the official closing date. Okay, and the reason why we close our doors is because our focus is always on existing clients, and that's because most of our compensation is success based. So we only get paid the bulk of our amount only when the application is successful. Therefore, we would rather have 2 to 3 successful clients as opposed to sign up 10 clients that are not successful. So that's why our focus is always on existing clients. Now, businesses that ring during the last week, they can't be helped. There's nothing could be done. It takes us about 2 weeks to do a grant application. So the only thing that we can offer them when we're booked out is we can only review the application for $500. And the reason why we can do that is just because it takes 1 hour, and it's very quick, as opposed to creating a whole application via our done for you service, which takes a very long time. So basically today what I've covered is I've covered an overview of the TIRF grant. I've talked to you about the difference between eligibility and the assessment criteria. Remember, eligibility gets you in the game, while the assessment criteria wins you that game. Number 5 is the 5 issues facing applicants. So they are already working with busy with other businesses. They don't understand the process and they feel overwhelmed. They can't get expert advice and so forth. And then I also talked about how the Grant Solutions, they can assist you. So the next steps is determine if you're serious, and that's very important because, like I've said before, it is a lot of work, and that's why if you're not serious, you shouldn't even begin the process. But if you are serious, then you'll be prepared for this work or for the investment required. The second thing to do is to find out more about Grant Solutions. So find out how we operate, read the information on our website, have a look at our 15+ pages of testimonials to get an understanding of how our clients, of their experience. And number 3 is request a complimentary 15-minute consultation, and that's just to discuss your project to see if you're eligible and if you have a reasonable chance of being successful as far as we're concerned. So I hope that you've obtained value from this presentation, and now I encourage you to take action because it's the only thing that will make your project a reality. So please act now to avoid disappointment. So number 1, determine if you're serious. Number 2, read up on Grant Solutions. And number 3, request a 15-minute consultation. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Turetsky, and I look forward to helping you in your project.